RWBY Ice Queendom Episode 6, Do You Have a Plan? Has officially released. So let me break it down for you. So, picking up where the last episode left off, Weiss had intercepted both RWBY and Blake on their path to find the nightmare. Figuring that RWBY has the more important job here, Blake decides to distract Weiss on her own and buy as much time as possible. Of course, the topic of Faunus and Weiss's outlook on them is brought up once more, leaving Blake to question Weiss's heart and what she believes. In the meantime, RWBY returns back to Yang, and together the two use the relic they found in the room earlier to advance further into the dream. They do wind up getting confronted by Grumpy Klein and a ton of robots, but unfortunately the fight is short-lived and we don't get to see much of it. But with them out of the way, they do find the Nightmare's room. Blake, by this point, had been overpowered by Weiss, who had infinite dust and summoning powers, and so escaped and regrouped with the rest of the team. Together, they advance further in, hoping to finish off the Nightmare, but things only go wrong. Weiss once again appears and decides to fight all three of them by herself. Things only go poorly for the three as RWBY drops the relic and is injured by the thorns trying to retrieve it, while Yang and Blake are barely enduring Weiss and her summons. Considering the danger is only getting worse, Xion pulls everyone out of the dream and back into reality once more. That's a win. That's a win for Weiss. Add it to the list. She beat RWBY, she beat Blake, she beat RWBY, Blake, and Yang. It counts. It counts. Anyway, once out of the dream, the show does something that I actually really love. All of the girls are sort of at wit's end about their plan. They don't know what they want to do, how to go about it. They're mostly unsure about what the right path forward is. So everyone splits up so they can have time to think about it on their own. And what winds up happening is this series making perfect use of its side characters. RWBY winds up speaking things through with Team Juniper, bouncing ideas and suggestions off of them, getting an idea about what they think she should do in this scenario. Yang winds up having an unexpected meeting with Penny, who spots her sitting on a bench alone talking to herself. Penny speaks of her experiences with dreaming, which of course as a robot is a tad different, but she tries to help out Yang even if she doesn't understand what the point is. And Blake winds up talking to Sun, who decides to look at things more optimistically. If Blake is constantly showing up in the dream despite being pushed away, then that must mean Weiss wants Blake to be there and she just might be powerful enough to help change her. On the topic of this scene, I do also love how Blake relates her past within the White Fang to push her further on this mission. How those who turned violent did so because they lost hope in the peaceful future that they were trying. Blake has subsequently rejected that idea of losing hope and thus will remain hopeful in her efforts to help Weiss. I'm telling you, the characterization of the girls gets better with each passing episode. But more than the girls here, what I loved was how it utilized these side characters. Knowing Ice Queendom is a really short season all things considered, along with what it is the story is trying to tell, it's clear that we're not meant to get a whole lot of Penny or Sun, and to a lesser extent Team Juniper. But the show put them in and had each of them in their own way help out a member of Team RWBY. Having each of the girls uncertain about what to do, but to then be shown that help can come in many different forms. It can come from your colleagues who have both been through what you're dealing with and can help you iron out your thoughts. Or it can come from a friend who's looking out for you and just wants to help in any way they can. Or sometimes it can come from completely unexpected places. It may not make a whole lot of sense, but you can infer something from what just happened. It utilized the side characters in what might be one of their only appearances that they get in such an effective manner. In many ways, this is what side characters should be in a setting like this. We know Sun's around because he's stowed away. Penny sometimes meanders the roads of Vale, and Team Juniper are classmates who you're likely to bump into in the halls and or in the cafeteria. All of these characters exist and are around, so to just bump into them every now and then just to talk is very refreshingly realistic. They're not getting pulled into some grand adventure. They're treated as if they have their own lives and it's just a coincidence that they got to sit down and chat. So, with each of the girls having found inspiration of their own, they each come together to formulate a new plan. Yang's intention is to change what happens within the dream. I did criticize the show earlier for having spent time repeating and retreading old grounds other episodes had already done, but I suppose I was wrong because the dream is meant to repeat the scenarios exactly the same over and over again whenever you re-enter. So, maybe a little explanation about how everything worked earlier would have been nice. But whatever, my bad. Anyway, the dream can only change so long as it's seen as a positive one. Otherwise, Weiss's body will reject it the same way it would a person she didn't know. Blake is hoping to change Weiss on a more personal level, letting her know that it's okay to change. And RWBY wants to utilize Jean. God damn it. Since he's already been infected, the dream will likely see him as an ally who is still possessed and will probably ignore him. So that's the plan. Jean's been regulated to a hot and cold detector to help find Weiss's body. The closer he gets to it, the stronger of a reaction he'll have. With that, the team, with the inclusion of Jean, head in once more for their last chance to save Weiss. Now, with that out of the way, this franchise needs to stop including Jean. I can't even say I don't know why they do it. Of course I know why. He's an easy main character. He's so useless. He's so unskilled. He's really at level 0 that anything you do with him is character development. But what upsets me about Jean getting included here is this show didn't need it. We were, for like the only time ever, getting just Team RWBY. We're getting interactions that we just want to see, which is the girls talking to each other. RWBY and Yang feel more like siblings here because they're getting more time to be with and interact together more. I'd love if RWBY and Blake got more moments. But to be fair, Blake really seems to be on her own path to help Weiss, who can't really contribute to their dynamic because she's technically in a coma. But this is doing something for Blake and Weiss's relationship. I don't know if they just included Jean because they want to expand on the love triangle plot that was Jean, Pyrrha, and Weiss. But even if that really is the case, who cares? They haven't done anything yet. Maybe Jean will just be there to be the comic relief and the show will ditch him while RWBY, Blake, and Yang get the screen time, which I hope is the case. But after everything that's happened, I don't want it to feel like a win because Jean got involved. If anything, they should have used Pyrrha. Weiss likes Pyrrha, and chances are she would be equally as welcomed into Weiss's nightmare as the rest of her team. Preferably, I would have liked it if Team Juniper stayed out of it. They've already gotten more than enough screen time in the actual show, and while I like their personalities here, why involve them? But outside of that mini Jean rant that has yet to come to fruition, this episode was one of the stronger ones, I would say. It's probably because the girls have to learn something, and they each get a nice meaningful talk with someone to help strengthen their resolve. It feels like they're hitting low points, but bouncing back stronger. All without the need to tear another character down, I mind you. Nightmare Weiss, yeah, perhaps not everything she says is how she actually feels, does wind up saying things that stick to the characters. She says how Yang is spoiling and coddling RWBY, robbing her of her chance to grow up, and later on she's upset and still thinking about that statement, acknowledging that it's true. It's a nice small character moment where you see Yang reflecting on what she's doing. Treating RWBY the way she does isn't necessarily a bad thing, but perhaps she is stunting her growth because of it. It's just small moments like that where she is exhausted, acknowledging it, but you can gather so much about what she's going through with so little presented. And on top of that, the episode was paired with some nice action. So when you have those meaningful moments and good fights, it makes for a pretty good episode all around. There's not too much to actually say about this episode. The first half was really enjoyable action, and the second half wound up with some nice meaningful moments. The only unfortunate thing is that it included Jean.